First step. Good morning. The April 16th, 2025 meeting of the Board of Estimates is now called to order. Mazel tov to Comptroller Henry for his anniversary. Keep at it, Bill. The board continues to meet in a hybrid format. For those here in person, please take a moment to silence your cell phones and other electronic devices. For those attending virtually, if you desire an opportunity to speak, we ask that you please keep yourself on mute until the chair recognizes you. When you're called upon, please announce your name and organization and speak loudly and clearly as you present. At this time, I would ask our clerk, Celeste Amato, for any corrections, additions, and noted abstentions for today's agenda.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning, everyone. Congratulations, Comptroller Henry and Ruth. This morning, we have the following corrections to note on the agenda. For SB 2511006, Bureau of Procurement, First Amendment to Agreement, Old Town Hotel Group, LLC, $435,000. Under agency name, please strike MR Office of Homeless Services and insert procurement. And under action requested, please strike note and insert approve. The board will be approving that transaction this morning. For SB 2510789 for Department of Public Works, this is a revision to the award WC 1397 Montebello Filter Controls Upgrade. Under SMBA and D field for MBE goals, please strike 111.10 and insert the more likely number of 11.10%. for MBE goals. We have the following walk-on this morning, SB 2511289 for City Council Summer Field Trips Gift Solicitation Waiver for $0. This is being walked on at the request of the Council President. And we have one deferral to note this morning, SB 2511196. This is an increase to contract 002100. This is a change order request for DNA reagents, an increase of $142,473. This item is being deferred at the request of the comptroller. We have no withdrawals to note this morning. We have no protests or statements to note this morning. The following items will appear on the non-routine agenda. SB 2510831, MOHS, Emergency Procurement, for Franciscan Winter Shelter for $110,747.17. SB 2510826, Mayor's Office of Homeless Services, Emergency Procurement for Lessar Consulting for $139,023.00. SB 2510794, Mayor's Office of Homeless Services, Emergency Procurement Athena Winter Shelter for $707,138.40. SB 2510829, Mayor's Office of Homeless Services, Emergency Procurement, Athena Consulting Shelter Care Services, Sleep In for $449,798.40. SB 2510833, Mayor's Office of Homeless Services, Emergency Procurement, Athena Hurricane Debbie for $14,291.20. SB 2510825, Mayor's Office of Homeless Services, Emergency Procurement for MIT Winter Shelter for $120,000.00. SB 2510796, Mayor's Office of Homeless Services, Emergency Procurement for YA Tailor-Made Transportation for $50,924. SB 2510793, Mayor's Office of Homeless Services, Emergency Procurement, CTH Ventures Miracle Method Surface Refinishing for $39,900. SB 2510830, Mayor's Office of Homeless Services, Emergency Procurement, Franciscan Center for $118,950. SB 2510792, Mayor's Office of Homeless Services, Emergency Procurement, POI Installation Group, LLC for $9,995. SB 2510828, Mayor's Office of Homeless Services, Emergency Procurement for Ecovia, $104,032.00. SB 2510832, Mayor's Office of Homeless Services, Emergency Procurement, Franciscan Center Hurricane Debbie, $3,000. SB 2511142, Department of Planning, transfer of funds to address other projects workday cleanup $25,386,274.33. SB 2511136, Department of Planning, transfer of funds from Reserve Cost Center PRJs to Active Cost Center PRJs for the same project, $783,326,133.52. SB 2511135, Department of Planning, transfer of funds to address deficits in select capital projects, $10,422,583.57. SB 2511137, Department of Planning, transfer of funds from Active Cost Center PRJs to Active Cost Center PRJs for the same project, $113,638,080.66. SB 25105517, Bureau of Procurement, an unauthorized procurement, WHC MD LLC, doing business as Z-Trip, for $22,527.10. SB 2510988, Department of Public Works, emergency agreement, LB Water Service, Inc., for $1,378,929.72. And SB 2511289 for the City Council, summer field trips gift solicitation waiver. No dollar amount involved. We have the following abstentions to note this morning. The Honorable Mayor Brandon Scott is abstaining on SB 2510417, Health Department Provider Agreement with the Johns Hopkins University. SB 2514131, Health Department Provider Agreement with the Johns Hopkins University. SB 2510494, Health Department Provider Agreement with the Johns Hopkins University. SB 2514400, Health Department Provider Agreement with the Johns Hopkins University. SB 2510745, Department of Transportation Developers Agreement with the Johns Hopkins University. The Honorable President Z. Cohen has no abstentions to note this morning. The Honorable Comptroller Bill Henry is abstaining on all travel requests and travel reimbursements. Deputy City Solicitor Stephen Salisbury has no abstentions to note this morning, and Director of Public Works Khalil Zaid has no abstentions to note this morning. There are also no votes to note for the routine agenda. And, Mr. President, that concludes our opening statement for this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. This time I ask for a motion to approve and adopt the opening statement as read by the clerk.
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and properly seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The opening statement has been adopted. I now direct the board members' attention to the memorandum from my office dated April 16, 2025, identifying matters to be considered as routine agenda items, together with any corrections, additions, abstentions, and no votes that have been noted by the clerk. I'll entertain a motion to approve all the items contained on the routine agenda.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor of approving the items on the routine agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. The routine agenda items have been adopted. Seeing no further questions, we will now move to the non-routine agenda. The first set of items on the non-routine agenda are all substantially similar, so I will call them all for consideration in one discussion. Those items are SB 2510831 MOHS Emergency Request Procurement ERP 000073 Franciscan Winter Shelter $110,754.17, SB 25-10826, MOHS, Emergency Request Procurement, ERP 000203, Lessar Consulting, $139,023, SB 25-10794, MOHS, Emergency Request Procurement, ERP 000226, Athena Winter Shelter, $797,138.40, SB 25-10829, MOHS, Emergency Request Procurement, ERP 000131, Athena Consulting Shelter Care Services, Sleep In, $449,798.40, SB 2510833, MOHS, Emergency Request Procurement, ERP 000201, Athena Hurricane Debbie, $14,291.20, SB 25-10825, MOHS, Emergency Request procurement ERP 0002223 MIT Winter Shelter $120,000. SB 2510796 MOHS Emergency Request procurement ERP 0000224 YA Tailor-Made Transportation, $50,924. SB 2510793, MOHS, Emergency Request, Procurement, ERP, 000215, CTH Ventures, Miracle Methods, Resurface, Refinishing, $39,900. SB 2510830, MOHS, Emergency Request, Procurement, ERP, 000132, Franciscan Center, $118,950. SB 2510792, MOHS, Emergency Request, Procurement, ERP 000246, PO Insulation Group, LLC, $9,995. SB 2510828, MOHS, Emergency Request, Procurement, ERP 000192, Ecovia, $104,032. SB 2510832, MOHS, Emergency Request, Procurement, ERP 000200, Franciscan Center, Hurricane Debbie, $3 million. These requests are for the board to note emergency procurement items with the Mayor's Office of Homeless Services. On behalf of MOHS, we have Director Ernestina Simmons. Director Simmons, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We have on a slide a little bit of a PowerPoint, but I think it just might be a little bit easier to walk through what some of these items looks like for MOHS. Next page. We're charged with being able to do the winter shelters across the city, and what that means for us is we are charged with making sure that during the winter shelter season, everyone that needs a bed is able to receive a bed. We use Athena Consulting Group in order to staff each of these shelters. We start off with 3 shelters as a baseline, but as more people are in need of shelter, we call on Athena for that staffing company to come on and add additional staff to ensure they're staffed across the board. Franciscan Center is also our vendor that provides foods at each of the shelters. When there is a cold purple, what our office does is we make sure we provide dinner and breakfast, but when there is a code blue by the health department, what we're able to do is make sure that there is food 3 meals a day for those that are in place 24/7. The item that's not related to winter shelter is LaSar Consulting Group. What we was able to do with LaSar is they helped us to launch the RFP for the PSH conversion project. The second item that LaSar was able to do for us is they helped us to apply for the federal application called CLC Build, and what that RFP was dedicated towards was capital and development dollars for a PSH conversion project. Application is still pending, but that is what that consulting group was able to do for the city of Baltimore. Next page. MIT Cleaning, Tailor-Made. Tailor-Made is our transportation vendor. During winter shelter, we have hubs and bus stops that's free for people to be able to access. Tailor-Made is the vendor that's able to do that for the city. MIT Cleaning is responsible for cleaning after each overflow. So once someone leaves, they're responsible for coming in, cleaning up, changing bed linens, and that work. The other one that's different is POI installation. As we transitioned some of our spaces to doubles from singles, we asked POI installation to come in and give us some room dividers if they were needed, and that is what that cost is for. Next page. This page is really just a synopsis of the clients that we have served in winter shelter. If you're able to see it, the first screen takes a look at 7/1/2024 through 4/1/2025. If you look at it for emergency shelters, we saw 1,753 households in shelter from 7/1/2024 through 4/1. But in winter shelter, we saw 770 households come into our space that needed some support. When you look at the screen on the side of it, that's breaking down clients that came into shelter from 7/1/2024. That's 2,391 clients. So as you're thinking about the cost as it's related to food, we're charged with making sure that we're offering food to each of those people that are in the winter shelters and staffing it. So that's really just to give some capacity surrounding the amount of clients that we're seeing in the winter shelter programs. Thank you.
So questions from the board, Councilmember, I'm sorry, Comptroller Bill Henry, you will always be a council member to me, sir.
Aw.
Comptroller Bill Henry.
Thank you. You'll always be a council member to me, too.
Thank you.
Okay. It's not so much a question for the director as much as a comment based on the extensive conversation that our office and your office had around these. And what I will admit is the philosophical issue I have about the city ever needing to use the emergency procurement process for something that we know we're going to need in advance. And I want to preface that by saying the extensive conversation we had made it very clear that MOHS did not do anything that they shouldn't have done. They were simply following the rules as we have the rules set up. And so my comment is, I think we might need an additional set of rules to cover some circumstances. And one of those that I'm hoping we can work out through a conversation with the Department of Finance, procurement specifically, and also the city administrator's office, is to set up an additional process by which, when we go through the regular process and it is not successful in getting us what we need, right now what happens is usually agencies get stuck with no other option than to do the emergency procurement process. What I'm looking for is maybe in those situations, there would be some way to immediately bring the matter back to the Board of Estimates and just publicly say, we tried this the right way and it didn't work, so we're going to have to do something that won't be the full procurement process that you're used to, but by disclosing that up front, openly and transparently, we make that matter something that people know from the get-go, as opposed to finding out months later after we did whatever it was we needed to do. And so that's my comment, and my office will be contacting both of the other offices to see if we can have that conversation and propose some thoughts that could be possibly worked into the existing procurement transformation that finance is already working on, or possibly be a separate action that the BOE takes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I want to concur with what the comptroller said. Understand the system as it is, and clearly there is a need for a better system because this isn't it. I did want to sort of getting a little more specific into some of these contracts. Have heard some concerns from community. Could you talk about just the oversight that your office is doing to ensure that we are getting the best bang for our buck, that we are taking care of the people that we serve in the best way possible, and just help the board understand the level of oversight and rigor that we experience? Because I think one of the challenges, and again, I will acknowledge that I am new to the board, still relatively new to the Board of Estimates. We do a lot of work in this city by contract, and some folks that we contract with are great, other folks are less great. It ends up being a pretty expensive proposition for the city of Baltimore that we contract so much out. It's something that I'm really interested in over the long term, trying to figure out how more of the work that we do comes in-house. But specific to these emergency procurements, could you just talk about sort of the level of oversight that your office does to ensure that we are getting what we pay for here?
Yes.
Ms. Flowers, I would appreciate, we're just going to let the director speak. Thank you.
Thank you. As is related to these contracts with Winter Shelter, our agency is charged with overseeing them. So Athena is a staffing company. We have an emergency services manager, and they're also responsible for The emergency services manager is also responsible for we have a seasonal manager, and that seasonal manager works directly with Athena and the staffing. They're responsible for the training. They're responsible for making sure that the Athena staffing group is doing what we're asked. But when it's winter shelter, the primary purpose of winter shelter is to make sure people have a safe space overnight. It only operates from 4 p.m. to 9 a.m. So there are no services that are involved as it's related to winter shelter. And for Franciscan Center, they were a new vendor for us as it's related to winter shelter, but they have served in this space before for the city and other service providers. And so we were grateful that they was willing to come on board last minute. The thing to note about winter shelter is you don't know when it's going to operate. Right, so you're asking these particular vendors to please convene a full staff for me within the next day. We announce it the day before, depending on what the weather is, but it's highly unpredictable. And so Athena Staffing has been able to help us with that, and Franciscan Center has been able to help us to ensure that there are food delivered to each of those locations.
Understood. Could you talk, you said one of these was a little bit last minute, and could you just talk about the vetting process and, again, help me and the board understand sort of what we're looking for? And then, again, if I could just push a little bit more on, once we make these partnerships, these contracts, what does MOHS's role look like in overseeing, ensuring that they're executed with fidelity, that residents, clients receive excellent services?
For winter shelter, it's overseen by our agency through the staffing firm. But what that means for us is, at the end of the day, we rely on the drop-in centers more than Athena staffing in order to make sure that people have some place to go the next day. So when you think about the staffing company, similar to what the comptroller mentioned earlier, this is an EPR process that happens because this is really our last resort for how we're going to staff the winter shelters. So there is no, in our normal process of our RFP process, it's competitive. You're able to rank the applications. It goes to a program compliance officer. We monitor it. That's our normal mode of business. But when it comes down to winter shelter, it operates completely different. It operates under the seasonal manager, the emergency services manager, and they're charged with making sure Athena is doing the items that we're asking them to do. Those items are fairly limited. We're asking them to make sure that the space is clean, the space is safe, that people can get into the space, and that tailor-made transportation is coming on time to pick people up, and that there are places for them to go. So whether that's my sister's place or some of the other locations, that's really winter shelter as it exists right now. It's not designed to provide the wraparound services.
Fully understand that this is really about a temporary,
Yes, sir.
And not sort of the more comprehensive services that I know we are starting to offer, and some of the partnerships with Healthcare for the Homeless and other providers. But nevertheless, obviously, it's extremely important that even if it is a short stay, which is what we would hope, that it is safe, it is clean, it is honors the worth and dignity of the people staying there. Talk to me a little bit just about the safety piece. Again, before your time, during your time, safety has always been a concern within particularly emergency shelters. And so can you talk through the oversight that the city does, particularly with these contractors, with these vendors, to ensure that safety is the top priority for clients and staff?
Not a problem. As is related to all shelters, including in winter shelter, it's security is a central component of each of these locations. And so rather it's our women's location, it's staffed with an armed security guard that's there, but it's also really staffed by people that are the floor monitors that are on site, each of the floors. But for the most part, I'm trying to think about all of our locations. McVet serves as a location for winter shelter. MOHS Athena Staffing serves as one. A lot of this work is done by staff that is responsible for overseeing the safety and making sure that you have a good ratio of staff to clients that's present in a location. Each location for Winter Shelter is not staffed with an armed security person. Most of it is staffed with people that have been trained on how, if they needed to interfere and provide a higher level due to a safety concern. But what I'll say, and I plan to talk about this further, is I took a look at the amount of times at which we're calling 911 to provide support at each of these locations. We're not seeing a high level of safety issues at our locations as is related to people being assaulted, harmed, raped. Those are the items that, when I think about the different levels of incidents, I'd be happy to share what that data looks like for each of the shelters. But that's not, I'm not saying that that doesn't happen. I'm saying those higher level of incidents, when I take a look at how often are our providers calling 911 and what is that about, it's not a number that exceeds what we would have expected for a space that populates our most vulnerable and hundreds of clients on a nightly basis.
On that note, you mentioned that in many cases it's not staffed with armed security people. Could you talk about what the security folks, like, is it peer model? Is it folks who are like, we have Abacus Security? Is it that kind of, like, talk to me about what that actually looks like in practice.
At our primary shelters, it's a security company, and each of the sub-recipients contract. I believe the Abacus is one of them that's at most of the shelters. I cannot remember off the top of my head who WHRC's security firm is. But as it's related to Winter Shelter, depending on the location, sir, because let's say if we activate Robert C. Marshall, one of the rec centers, I'm not able to deploy a security team to go to Robert C. Marshall and go ahead and going to get a security company. That's staffed by our teams, that's staffed by Athena, the consulting company, and what they're responsible for is just making sure that the staff that are at the locations have received training to be at the locations and know how to deal with our clients and know how to serve them. But we don't use security firms as we are looking to just add on shelter locations overnight. We do not.
Understood. Just to take a slight step back, so I was interested, there was a UMBC poll that came out the other day that ranked issues that Baltimoreans care about, and the number one issue was poverty and homelessness. We know this has been a challenge in our city, and I think it looks really different than it does in a lot of West Coast cities, even in our neighbor in Washington, D.C. Could you talk sort of at a more macro level about the issue of people experiencing homelessness, sort of the numbers of unhoused individuals? Has it gone up recently? Has it gone down? I sort of anticipate that with some of the instability that we're seeing in our economy being driven by Washington, D.C., I worry that we will see increased homelessness in our city and across our country. Could you talk about just what the picture looks like at the moment for Baltimore?
That is a question I love, sir. So for us, when HUD released their 2024 report in January for the city of Baltimore, we've had a 30% decrease in homelessness from 2019. Our city we were doing really well, having a 30% decrease in homelessness from 2019. We've been able to ensure that clients that are exited.
Sorry, when did that report from HUD come out?
In January.
January.
It was released in January of 2025. And so it was able to help us see how our city is ranking with others and what are we doing well, what are we not doing well. So that was a number to be proud of, right? But the numbers that I'm really focused on is we are seeing more clients come into this system that's experiencing homelessness for the first time. And our 2025 numbers is going to reflect what you're talking about. It is going to reflect the increase in housing and the lack of a housing supply. And so what we're trying to do is to figure out how do we make our systems far easier for people to access. Housing in our city, especially the ones that MOHS is responsible for, they're very difficult for clients to be able to get in. Most of our projects are permanent supportive housing programs. It aims to serve those that are the most chronic within our system. Those are the housing programs that we have at this current time. But as we look at what we know is going to come into our city, those clients will not be eligible for most of the housing programs that MOHS is charged with. So part of what we're looking at now is how do we look at our system and what's the available resources across the ecosystem that's going to address the immediate needs. When we think about affordable housing versus permanent supportive housing, very different. I tell people all the time that affordable housing is great. Unfortunately, my clients have no income. So as such, it's very affordable housing doesn't necessarily help the clients that I'm trying to help at this moment in time. So I think over the next there's a couple of things that we're trying to do. My office works very closely with the Housing Authority of Baltimore City, and I work closely with Commissioner Kennedy. And what we're looking at is the resources and what we expect to come online, and how do we use the housing supply to address what we're seeing in our ecosystem. That's also going to look like creating more housing opportunities for people that are dealing with substance use and substance abuse. A lot of those clients have very little places to go. Transitional housing programs no longer exist the way that they used to exist. And so they're also now in this homeless service, homeless response system, which is not necessarily designed to meet at that need.
How closely do you work with like Baltimore County and just sort of the regional partners? Because I think a lot of times Baltimore City folks who experience homelessness or unhoused in our city may not be from Baltimore, may not be Baltimore residents, but come to the city because there are resources, and in other places there are not resources. And it's one of these, I think, somewhat perverse, cruel ironies of our city is that often folks in other parts of the state will malign Baltimore for all of the challenges that we have, when in actuality, we end up providing service for many people that are unhoused, that are, to your point, experiencing issues around addiction, because we have more robust treatment supports, although clearly we have work to do in that category as well. Our hospitals, mental illness. So I'm just curious what this conversation looks like at the regional and sort of state level as we begin to tackle what you just alluded to.
Yes, sir. At the state level, the state's been wonderful partners for homeless services, first and foremost. We do a lot of work with them as looking at our system and how we're comparing. I'll use an example of, I serve on the Interagency Council on Homelessness, which is really with the state. We take a look at where Baltimore City is and where we're doing well in comparison to other COCs. What I'd like to say is, I don't necessarily work with Baltimore County or the other jurisdictions. I take a look at their data. I take a look at how our city is comparing and what are some of their best practices. And I work with the state on what's going to make sense for us to do in Baltimore City. Right now, we're very focused on I'm very intentionally focused on people that's coming into our system for the first time, and I'm also intentionally focused on those that are chronically homeless and taking a look at where they're coming from. A lot of the challenge, there's so many challenges, but one of them to be lifted up is there are clients that come from other jurisdictions into the city. There really is very little that we can do about that. What I'll say is, if you're here and you have a need, we can see if we have the resources, but the odds are we have thousands of clients that call our shelter hotline every single day that can't get into the shelters. And so, although I understand the challenges in the other jurisdictions, Baltimore City makes up at least 60 to 70% of those that are experiencing homelessness in the state of Maryland. And so I think our focus has to be on our systems approach and what can we do to have more access points that when people are coming here for services and needs, how are we meeting that need?
I appreciate that. Again, this is a top issue for Baltimoreans, and to your earlier premise, it is pretty likely that it is going to get worse.
Yes, sir.
Before it gets better. It is going to be critically important that any service provider we partner with operates with the highest integrity, and that safety is the cornerstone, safety and security. And I will again concur with my friend over here in that I think this way of us doing business, and this is sort of a systems level thing with the emergency procurements, is not the best way we can. And so hope to, Comptroller, be part of those conversations that you are leading. Again, really appreciate, Director, your focus and the way in which you have moved in this space. There is clearly more to do, and in making sure that all of our partner providers are doing an excellent job. But appreciate you being before us today. Appreciate this conversation. Mr. Mayor, I saw your hand up.
No, thank you, Mr. President, and Mr. Comptroller. Thank you, Madam Director. I think we look forward to having a conversation about any changes to the system, but I just want to remind everyone about even things in our proposed budget. So in our proposed budget, it's money for another shelter, for us to buy another shelter as we have in the past, and just remind everyone about the changing nature of winters in Baltimore and how unpredictable they are, and how, one day it can be 60 degrees and the next day you literally have 10 degrees with minus wind chills, and that requires us to be able to respond in a quick and nimble manner in order to provide a shelter for those who are most at risk for all the things that can happen when you're outside in temperatures like that. It used to be that our weather was a lot more predictable, and we know that is going to continue to get worse until we as a world understand what we need to do to make sure that climate change gets under wraps.
The only thing I'll add about the emergency procurement process was that in this CFA season, we have attempted to get agencies to bid on these contracts. So we do not anticipate a food contract coming through the EPR next year. We don't anticipate tailor-made transportation coming through here. But what I'd like to say is we attempted through our process this year to get vendors to bid so we would not have to use Athena staffing. No one bid on this project. And so I think the recommendation for how we proceed next year is a great recommendation. We will absolutely do that. But this year, we made an attempt to make sure we can go through our normal solicitation process and get people to bid on them. But as it relates to staffing the locations, it's a big ask to ask of any organization to staff up in that way due to a lot of what the mayor just mentioned. It's highly unpredictable. But we are making the attempts to not have to go through the EPR process.
Thank you, Director. Hearing and seeing no further questions. Just actually one more on that. Do you have any sense of why? I mean, I hear you on the unpredictability and the weather, and this is a tough space to operate. I am just curious, like, why didn't folks bid?
A couple of things. Definitely the unpredictable nature. We switch from the degrees. So code purple for us means that it's 32 degrees and below, and that's from 4 p.m. to 9 a.m. If the health department declares a code blue, which is that 13 degree and below, then you have to shelter in place and you have to staff it 24/7. So an organization that might be interested saying, oh, we can do 4 p.m. to 9 a.m., that won't interrupt our normal business patterns. But if the weather shifts and people have to shelter in place, now you're asking an organization to take on something that's seasonal, that's far less predictable for them. And I think as they're looking at their organizational structures, they did not bid on it, sir. And so what we'll do is just continue to look for, we'll explore different approaches going into next year, but I know that we just released this and it's closed, and I can tell you no one has bid on staffing the winter shelter locations. And the other item about it is we add on locations. We can start off the night with 1-2 sites, and by the end of the night, I have 4 sites.
Sure.
And I think this administration has been really clear with me that everyone that asks for a shelter bed gets a shelter bed, and as a result, we just keep opening spaces.
Seeing no further questions, these items are noted by the board. Thank you, Director.
Thank you all.
The next set of items on the non-routine agenda are also all substantially similar, so I'll call them for consideration in one discussion. Those items are SB 251138, Planning De-appropriation of State and Federal Appropriations from Select Capital Projects. SB 251142, Planning Transfer of Funds to address other projects. Workday Cleanup, $25,386,274.33. SB 251136, Planning Transfer of Funds from Reserve Cost Center PRJs to Active Coast Center PRJs for the same project, $783,326,133.52. SB 251135, Planning Transfer of Funds to address deficits in select capital projects, $10,422,583.57. SB 25-11137, Planning Transfer of Funds from Active Cost Centers PRJs to Active Cost Center PRJs for the same project, $113,638,080.66. These requests are for the These requests are for the board to approve de-appropriations and transfers of funds for capital projects across certain city agency projects. On behalf of planning, we have
Sarah Parnellum.
And Mr. President,
Department of
with
Planning. Good
apologies,
morning.
we have one more item that we need to add to the non-routine. It did not print on the routine agenda, but it's a de-appropriation.
Okay. Do you,
I'm
Clerk,
planning not to bring you those
apologies,
details now.
Sarah, Madam Clerk, do you want to read it, or
Sure.
do you? Okay.
The following item needs to be added to the non-routine agenda. We had, we believe, a technical glitch, so it did not print on the routine agenda from the President's office. That item is SB 25-11138, de-appropriation of state and federal appropriations from select capital projects. The board's requested to approve it.
He read that.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh.
He
Okay.
read that one.
That's the last one.
It was not on the opening statement. It,
But he read it.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Apologies.
No problem. We're good. Again, these requests are for the board to approve de-appropriations and transfers of funds for capital projects across certain city agencies. On behalf of planning, we have Sarah, please, online with us. Please take it away.
Good morning, Sarah Parnellum from the Baltimore City Department of Planning. Thank you for offering me an opportunity to present on these items, and thank you for allowing me to present remotely. I'm on vacation this week, so I appreciate that. So these 5 items are all related to the implementation of Workday and cleanup within the project's work stream. So I wanted to provide a little bit of background on that to get us started, and then I'll go through each of the
Apologies,
items.
Sarah, just one second. Could we make it slightly louder? Or could you speak a little louder? This is my hearing.
Yeah. Is this better?
Okay, just speak loud and into the, whatever you're speaking into. Thanks.
I'll move a little bit closer. Is that better?
Yes, that's a little better. Thank you.
All right. So these items are all related to the conversion to Workday. And so we are doing cleanup related to that conversion or things that were highlighted when we did the conversion that needed the cleanup that had been ongoing. So the conversion to Workday generated some data inconsistencies for capital projects and also required some new business processes related to how capital projects are configured. We've been working on that cleanup process and have completed some of the administrative steps related to cleanup, and we're continuing to address those challenges. But some of the data challenges require approval by the Board of Estimates and Planning Commission, and so those are the items that we have before you today. And then we will be completing some additional cleanup after these items are approved. So there are two items that require Board of Estimates and Planning Commission approval. When project appropriations change after the capital improvement program is approved, those changes require approval by the Board of Estimates and Planning Commission. And so those two categories are deappropriations and transfers of balances between projects within the same agency. And so we are consolidating these cleanup actions into a group of bulk actions, and that's why you see them before you today. So transfers come before the board on a routine basis, but what you're seeing today is a lot of transfers on the same agenda items to facilitate this cleanup. So I'll start with the deappropriations. So let me just start by explaining what deappropriations are. In order for an agency to spend capital funds, they need to have two things. They need to have an appropriation, which is permission to spend, and they also need to have revenue to back up that appropriation. And so a deappropriation is removing that permission to spend. And this is a process that needs approval by both the Board of Estimates and the Planning Commission. And so that's why we are here today. So for decades, agencies have requested appropriations in anticipation of receiving awards of federal and state grants. And in many cases, that was requested optimistically, and those federal and state grants were not awarded. And so this action is simply removing those state and federal appropriations that don't have a revenue to back them up, that don't have a current work tag associated with them. So you'll see a couple of examples here on the screen. The first one is $9 million that was appropriated for Penn Station redevelopment a few years ago. The state budget initially identified that these funds would be coming to the city of Baltimore, but then later that was revised and the funds were directed to a nonprofit, directly to a nonprofit that would be administering them. Those appropriations remain on the city's books, and so what we're doing here, is an example of the cleanup where we're removing that appropriation, so that we have a better clarity about what funding is available in the project. The second example here is broadband for public housing sites. So here's a case where an agency, anticipated that they might be able to get an award of a grant from the state, and they were not able to get that grant. And so we're just cleaning up these appropriations that are on the book, which do not have revenue behind them. So there isn't an impact on these projects. The agencies are aware that these don't have revenue behind them. There isn't an impact on the FY26 budget. This is really a cleanup action so that we're clearer about what is and is not available within capital projects. The next item is transfers to address deficits. So the Bureau of Accounting and Payroll Services within the Department of Finance has identified some capital projects that have deficits. Agencies are reviewing those projects and correcting mischarges, but where there are deficits remaining, then a transfer is needed in order to address that deficit. So funds are being transferred from a project that's either completed or inactive to address those deficits. And the Department of Finance is taking steps to prevent any future deficits. So the first example that you'll see here is that there is a $10,000 deficit in the Baltimore City Heritage Reserve project, and we're doing a transfer from Baltimore City Heritage Area Small Capital Grants, so a related project that had funding available in it to make up for that deficit. The second example you'll see here is that there's a small deficit in the Maryland Science Center Kids Room Elevator project, less than $5,000. The Green Network and Rachel Wilson Park is completed. That project is completed. There is a balance available that can be used to address that deficit in the Science Center project. The third action is transfers to consolidate balances that are for essentially the same project, where we have multiple PRGs. So there is, and that's the unique identifier for projects in Workday. So we have a project in the reserve cost center and a project in an active cost center, and we're consolidating the balances so that they're all in the project that's in the active cost center. So just for a little bit of background, historically, the city budgeted capital projects into reserve accounts and required agencies to transfer funds to active accounts in order to spend those funds. That process was discontinued a few years ago, but the appropriations that were in those reserve accounts prior to that policy shift remain in those reserve accounts. And so through this process, we're just cleaning that up and consolidating the balances into a single account so that it's easier to see, where the balances are. Currently, with multiple PRJs, it's very hard to identify the full funding that's available for a project because you have to look it up in multiple places. So you'll see a couple of examples here where in a reserve cost center, we have a project called Inspire Plan Implementation. We're moving the remaining balance from that project into a project in an active cost center that agencies will be able to spend out of. That project is called Inspire. So you can see that it's really the same project, just a consolidation. The second example, similar, right? B&O Restoring the First Mile is a project in a reserve cost center. We're moving that remaining balance to a project called B&O Museum and Restoring First Mile that's in an active cost center. So this is just going to help us, help agencies, help the administration and the public be able to understand the balances in projects. This next action is very similar. This is also transfers to consolidate balances for the same purpose, for the same project. The difference is in this case, there are projects that are in active cost centers that we are transferring to projects that are also in active cost centers. So these accounts are not linked at all. To see the total balances, you have to know that there are multiple accounts and you have to look those up. So through this process, again, we're consolidating those. When we first implemented Workday, we implemented Workday prior to implementing the budgeting software, and so new projects were created as a result, and so we're cleaning that up. So you'll see examples. Again, these are very much moving balances from the same project. Lamondo Stabilization Facade and Envelope Repair to Lamondo Stabilization Facade and Envelope Repair, just written in shorthand. And then the last item is other transfers to cleanup projects. So here we are transferring balances from related projects into a single project. So they may not be exactly the same project, but they're very much related. We are transferring balances from completed projects into current projects, as well as inactive projects into current projects. So you'll see an example here. Capital project priorities has a small balance left after, that was essentially completed, $153. We are moving that balance into an active project called Surplus Schools to be able to address the city's growing inventory of surplus schools. The next example here is very timely, as we were just talking about homeless services. So there was a project from many years ago called Beacon House Square. That project is inactive, and so we're moving that balance to a project called Homeless Services Facilities, so that we have that available to spend for homeless services projects that are currently active. And so that's the conclusion of my presentation, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Mr. Comptroller, we'll start with you.
The first is not a question, it's just a comment. Thank you very much for coming in during your vacation to testify to the board and explain all this so fully. And I do have a request from my office, if after your testimony is done, if you could take an unblurred picture of the view behind you and send that to us, we would appreciate that. Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Mayor? I'm fine. All right. Could you just for the general public, could you just explain what the deappropriation, just that term, and what are the legal implications of deappropriation on the budget the council adopted and the mayor signed in 2024?
Yeah, so these deappropriations are from items that might be from much longer ago than fiscal year '24. The capital budget doesn't expire when appropriations happen. So some of these have been collecting for decades and are sitting, on the city's books as appropriations. A deappropriation is basically removing the appropriation, removing that permission to spend. So in the past, city agencies have, in order to spend funds that are received, you need to have appropriations. And so if you receive mid-year a federal grant or a state grant and you don't have appropriations, you're not able to spend those. And so the practice has been for many years that agencies would request appropriations on the chance that they're any chance at all that they might receive a state or federal grant, that they might apply for something, that they might receive something, because they wouldn't be able to spend it if they hadn't gotten those appropriations. And so we're changing that now. Going forward, starting with FY26, we're making sure that agencies have an award for a grant in place before we're appropriating funds so that we won't be collecting all of these appropriations. But what we're doing is we're removing those appropriations from the books. So these are appropriations that were put in place over decades in past budgets that don't have revenue to back them up. So all we're removing is that permission to spend. There's no revenue that's being removed because the revenue doesn't exist.
Understood. So based on our email correspondence and your prior presentation, it seems the Department of Planning is acknowledging that we did not get money that we had planned for and that was approved in the ordinance of estimates. Considering that, is there any reason the council cannot amend the capital budget to target projects they prioritize for their districts?
Can you say that again? I'm not sure I understand.
Let me just make sure sort of board is clear on, or at least I'm clear on what's happening here. We didn't get the money that we had planned for and had been approved. Is that part right?
I'm not sure I would say that it was planned for. It was appropriated in case it was received.
Okay.
Mr. Council President, sorry, can I just chime in as well?
Yeah, Mr. Salisbury?
One point of clarification, Ms. Parinello, can you also clarify, I mean, the planning budget is different from the operating budget in terms of the city council's roles and responsibilities. So is that something that ordinarily the council would be changing as we go through the budget process? The capital budget?
The capital budget, the general funds are within the last couple of years within the council's purview to make changes to. Yes, the same as the operating budget, but these are federal and state funds, not general funds.
Mr. Comptroller?
I just want to get a clarification. Sarah, you're saying that you're distinguishing between planned for and appropriated because the agencies knew that it was possible that they wouldn't get the money, and therefore they didn't spend other funds in doing other parts of the project, and they didn't make very detailed plans for spending it, but the money was appropriated in case they got it.
Yes,
is that
thank
accurate?
you. Yes,
Okay.
that is right. So these funds weren't counted for as part of budgets for projects because this was in anticipation of a possibility. Yes, thank you, Comptroller, for clarifying that.
ask you a question, and I think will clarify some of the stuff that you might have.
Absolutely. Director Zaid?
Sarah, could you tell us that is when we award a project, the actual award of the project, the funds have to be there originally. So the appropriation is one piece, but the award of the project itself and having the fund behind it, it requires the money to be there prior to.
Yes, for the award of a contract, yes, absolutely.
So no project will go ahead and be awarded without having the funding behind it.
Understood. So just trying to understand, then why do we include the amounts in the budget when we sort of know that we can't rely on them? Mr. Mayor?
I think it's Mr. President. It's because, for example, if you're DPW, right, and you're doing a project out at Back River, and the feds later in the year are going to be awarding grants to that, right? We don't know the timeline from when they're going to award. Anytime, for sure, with this administration, we have a fiscal responsibility to pass the budget by law. But let's just say he applied for $200,000 of that grant. If he was awarded that in August, but we don't have it appropriated in the budget, then we have to wait to come back to spend that money because you all haven't approved it. It's just about making sure that in case, because we're not in control of the alignment of when state or federal or other grants could come into the city of Baltimore.
Understood. Have we had to execute transfers like this in the past, in the recent past? And is there an example you could provide?
I think the reason that we're doing this now is because this hasn't happened routinely in the past. So we are doing two things going forward. One, we're going to be doing this routinely going forward, so these don't accumulate and become such a large action of cleanup of many decades of appropriations. But we would be doing this, through the annual CIP, making sure that we're reviewing any grants that weren't received or any appropriations that don't have revenue to back them up. The other thing we're doing is we're changing the practice. So in the past, agencies requested these appropriations in anticipation, as the mayor indicated. Going forward, we're asking agencies to ask for appropriations only when they have a grant award in hand. But we know even then things can change, and so we still want to do that review. But we will be going through a supplemental process more frequently if we get awards mid-year.
I see Madam Cindy Administrator.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Mr. Council President. So I just wanted to provide a little bit more background and clarity as to the process that we are going through.
Sure.
So you will recall during last year's budget, as we were going through the FY25 budget, it looked as though the city's total budget was lower than the previous years. And what we outlined for the council is that we were going through a process by which we were only accounting for grants that we were certain that we were going to receive. Right. And so we changed our practice and developing our budget around how grants show up in the city's budget. Similarly, we have undertaken a project with planning and the CIP team where we want to be very clear about the dollars that we actually have in order to complete capital projects. And so moving forward, that is why we've changed our practice. So this is about, again, cleaning up our practices, cleaning up our accounting, modernizing how we manage the city's budget process as well as the CIP process. And a part of that, too, is also getting clear about the outstanding dollars that we have and what we don't have. And so that is why we're going through this accounting process in partnership with the Department of Finance and Planning so that we can clear everything up from the past and get clear on how we're budgeting grants moving forward, not just on the operating side, but also on the capital side.
Mr. Mayor.
And I think that's important to note, Mr. President, Mr. Comptroller, Ms. Comptroller. I know you know very deeply that the city in the past has been in this mindset or operating in a way where we weren't really talking about this kind of stuff publicly, and we were operating with these outdated policies. So this is us being more upfront, more truthful, more transparent, but also saying that we're not going to make some of those same mistakes in the past and allowing, we've seen it, I know the councilman, you got me saying that, the comptroller knows about capital projects that were in the capital budget for like multiple 6-year time frames because they just allowed them like, oh, we're giving money to this, and it just sat there where we weren't completing those projects. This is about us making sure that we know exactly how much we have and that we're focusing on the things that we can complete, and we spend the money that we have, not guesstimating to what we might get or may not get in the future.
Mr. Comptroller?
Thank you, Mr. President. Exactly. And the note that I had shared with the Council President is historically, I think the administrations have not wanted to do lots and lots and lots of supplemental appropriations during the course of the budget year. So if they already knew that there was a chance of getting money, they just appropriated it en masse in the ordinance of estimates and saved themselves, and depending on how you want to look at it, saved the council the trouble of processing all of them, or saved the council the opportunity of scrutinizing them.
No, understood. So just for clarity, are the projects affected by these transfers, I assume they're not being eliminated but delayed, and if they're delayed, like what does the timeline look like?
I don't think that's the case, that they're being delayed. Agencies are aware that there isn't revenue to back these up, so they're not counting on as these appropriations as a source of funds to complete projects. So this isn't removing these appropriations, isn't delaying projects. It's just making it more transparent about what funds are actually available to move projects forward.
And so the agencies then would sort of have to reapply, start the process over. I'm seeing City Administrator shaking her head.
No.
Talk.
So no, right? Again, this is really an accounting cleanup, right? This has nothing to do with the actual projects themselves. These projects, many of them have already moved forward. We already know that we're not getting the state or federal appropriation or grant dollars. And so we've either identified funding through CIP or when we had ARPA dollars that we put towards capital. So this is really just a cleanup, and it doesn't impact any of the work on the projects.
Got it. All right. Seeing no further questions, we will move to vote on each of these contracts separately. For SB 251138, planning the appropriation of state and federal appropriations from select capital projects, I will entertain a motion to approve this item.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of approving this item, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The item is approved. For SB 251142, planning, transfer of funds to address other projects, workday cleanup, $25,386,274.33. I'll entertain a motion to approve this item.
So moved.
Second.
Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. The item is approved. For SB 251136, planning, transfer of funds from reserve cost center PRJs to active cost center PRJs for the same project, $783,326,133.52. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of approving this item say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. This item is approved. For SB 251135, planning, transfer of funds to address deficits in select capital projects, $10,422,583.57. I will entertain a motion to approve
So moved.
this item.
Second.
All those in favor of approving this item say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. This item is approved. For SB 251137, planning, transfer of funds from active cost centers PRJs to active cost centers PRJs for the same project, $13,683,080.66. I'll entertain a motion to approve this item.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor of approving this item, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. This item is approved. The next item on the non-routine agenda is SB 2510-517 from Procurement. This request is to approve payment for outstanding invoices for transportation services provided without a valid contract. On behalf of Procurement, we have Director Adam Manny. Director Manny, the floor is yours.
Good morning, Mr. President, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Comptroller, honorable board members. Adam Manny, your Chief Procurement Officer. I'm here today requesting permission to pay outstanding invoices for $22,527.10 to WHCMD, doing business as Z-Trip, on behalf of Elections. Elections originally, this service is taxi service to shuttle elections officials, equipment, and people while they're setting up for elections and on an election day. So if they need to move election representatives from one site to another to make sure things are flowing smoothly, it can be done. The elections originally had opened up and went through the process for the primary and mistakenly thought that they had done everything for both the primary and the general election last year. And unfortunately, no, it was just for the primary. By the time the mistake was found and we were working with the taxi company and getting things forward with administrative processes, by every time all the documentation was ready to go, the election, of course, was over, and we had needed these services. So we're asking permission to make these payments. We have been working with Elections to make sure that the next time that we have everything, and it's a clear understanding of what's going on.
Great. Questions from the board? No? All right. Seeing no further questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve this item.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor of approving this item, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. This item is approved. All right. The next item on the non-routine agenda is SB 2510-988 from the Department of Public Works. This request is to note an emergency authorization to contract with LB Water Service, Inc. to supply water meters. On behalf of DPW, we have Director Garbark. Director Garbark, the floor is my bad, sir.
No, my boss is right there.
Blame the guys that wrote my script. Don't blame me, Director. Please continue to.
Absolutely. He's the director as well.
Indeed. Deputy Director Garbark, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Comptroller, members of the board. I'm Matt Garbark, Deputy Director for the Department of Public Works. This item is an emergency procurement for water meters with LB Water Services. The value is $1,378,929.72. In this order, we are purchasing 6,455 meters, ranging from 5/8 of an inch, which is our most numerous number, which is most of our residential and single-family home meter sizes, all the way up to 6 inches. We generally try to keep a 9-month supply worth of inventory on hand. Generally speaking, in most months, that averages about 4,500 to 5,000 meters. What has happened with this is that we've been working with the Bureau of Procurement to get a brand-new contract for all meter sizes. Over the past few years, we have extended certain contracts. We've done bulk orders of other contracts. There have been some supply chain disruptions for meter because of a lot of them use chips and other materials that have been susceptible to supply chain fluctuations. We had anticipated and looking at the past had thought that we would have enough supply to get us through when the new contract came into effect. The closing date for that was February 5th of this year. It's under review now. And my understanding is that a contract is anticipated to come to the board within the next few weeks. However, because of the extreme cold weather we experienced starting in December, but really it was in January, we went through our supplies much quicker than we had anticipated. Since December alone, we went through about 1,045 of our 5/8 inch meters. And in January alone, we had 585 space pipes put in. That is when we can't get to a meter immediately. We put a space pipe in so water can continue flowing. We have to then go back and put meters in. This was a lot higher than we normally experience. Our goal is with this new contract to have supplies of all meters of all sorts so that we can maintain that inventory so that we don't have to do this again. But this will give us at least a 6-month supply. We anticipate the contract to be in place far in advance of the end of that 6 months. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Director Zaid, please continue to have them pick up trash outside my house. Apologies for the mishap on my part. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Deputy Director. Thank
sir.
you very much. I just, Mr. President, Mr. Comptroller, when talking with the Deputy Director and the DPW team, much like the conversation we had with Homeless Services earlier today, I said very simply, we know we should expect more extreme cold winters, and that I directed them to make sure that we are doubling and thinking about keeping more supply than we historically have, and they're well aware, and we'll be doing that as we go through the contract. That's all.
Other questions from the board? All right. Seeing no further questions, this item is noted by the board. The next item on the non-routine agenda is a walk-on item from my office, SB 11289, summer field trip, gift solicitation waiver. The request is to approve a solicitation waiver to allow the Council President's office to solicit donations for a summer field trips program for Baltimore City students. On behalf of my office, we have Legislative and Policy Director Shamoya Gardner. Director Gardner, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a request for the Board of Estimates to approve a charitable solicitation waiver for the Council President to support a program that coordinates summer field trip opportunities for Baltimore City school students. It works in partnership with Baltimore's Promise, and in 2024 arranged more than 50 trips for approximately 2,000 students. We will solicit donations from Baltimore's cultural institutions and local foundations in compliance with the Ethics Code. We have received approval from the ethics boards already, as provided in the materials today. With that, I will take any questions from the board.
Are there any questions from the board?
I'll make a motion to approve, Mr. President.
Is there a second? All those in favor of approving this item, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. I will abstain. The item is approved. Please note one abstention from the Council President. Thank you, Director Gardner. As there is no further business before the board, we will now adjourn this meeting. The next regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Estimates will occur on Wednesday, April 16th, 2025 at 9 a.m. I thank everyone for participating and tuning in. Bill Henry, please take Ruth to a nice place tonight. and
Hamilton Hills?
Coco's it is. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Comptroller, and the entire board.
No, I got to go to.
Hi, TV25, we are ready. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Board of Estimates bid opening for April 16th, 2024. We're going to jump right in. We have 6 bids to open today and no addenda to share, so there have been no changes to future bid openings at this time. Up first for General Services, we have PRJ 002063. This is for the Park Heights Library and CC Jackson Park Addition.
Good morning. We
Good morning.
have 3 bids that open. The first one is from Plano Kudon LLC. I have 1 original, 1 duplicate in front of me. I want to note there is a bid bond,
Thank you.
and the total bid amount is $18,788,000.00.
88.
Yes.
That number was 18,788,000.00.
That is correct.
Okay, that bidder was Plano Kudon LLC, $18,788,000. Up next. Can I mention that it bugs me that it doesn't say original then duplicate? That's OCD, the organization of the sheet. I want the
Oh.
original first, because I
Okay.
want to go left to right.
We can do that. Let the record show.
That I
the
need
next
more
one-
medication, and we could reorder these columns. Go ahead.
The next one is from the Whiting Turner Contracting Company.
Okay.
I have one duplicate, one original. I have a bid bond,
Thank you.
and the total bid amount is $18,600,000.00.
You made that very exciting. Let me get that again. 18,600,
Yes.
comma 000.00. Something is going wrong with the formatting in this section. Hang on.
Do you want me to?
Something's wrong with the formatting. 18. It's not adding the pennies in that box. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to repeat that back
Okay.
to you again. That was 18,600,000.00.
That's great. Correct.
That bidder was Whiting Turner Contracting for $18,600,000.00. And up next,
Okay. Up next, we have a bid from. Sorry. A lot of paper. WM Schlosser Company Incorporated. I have one original and one duplicate. I have a bid bond,
thank you.
and the total bid amount is $21,266,000.00.
Okay, that number was 21,266,000.00.
That's correct.
That bidder was WM Schlosser Company, Inc. for $21,266,000.00.
Thank you.
Up next, we have for the Bureau of Procurement RFQ 000488 Interior Renovation Services. And
Yep.
can you hand me the dupes on those?
Yes,
As we
go.
Thanks, yeah.
Okay, so the first bid is from Alden Incorporated.
Uh-huh.
Sorry. This. I have one original in front of me, and I'm gonna hand you the two duplicates.
Thanks.
And the total bid price is $461,575.
That number was 461,575.00.
That's correct.
And you guys have a flash drive?
No flash drive.
Okay. Here's the copies. Okay.
Thank you. Okay.
I'm correcting
The
the
next-
spelling of Abingdon
What?
for the record. I corrected Abingdon, the next bidder.
Oh, okay.
Address.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so the next one is from C&W Construction Company, Inc. I have one original, one dupe, and a flash drive.
Thank you.
Hold on to the flash drive. And the total bid price is $300,399.50.
That number was 300,399.50.
That's correct.
Okay, that bidder was C&W Construction for $300,399.50. Thanks.
Okay, the next bidder is First Potomac ENV. I have one original, one flash drive, and 2 copies.
Thank you.
And the total bid price is $46.50. Sorry, I forgot to keep talking.
Number was 376,046.50.
That's correct.
I'm gonna let somebody else add that up because it's either a 00 or a 50. I can't quite tell from the handwriting, but I'm gonna record it as 50. And the agency can suss that out.
We don't do math here.
Well, we're capable. We
Oh,
don't.
you can speak for yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry, and that was First Potomac ENV Co. for $376,046.50.
All right, and the last bidder for this item is P2 Cleaning Services, LLC. I have one original and one copy and one flash drive.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. And the total total bid amount, $380,329.30.
That number was 380,329.30.
Correct?
And that was our final of 4 bidders. That was P2 Cleaning Services LLC for $380,329.30. And up next, we have RFQ 000655, supply and delivery of copper tubing. Is that correct?
That is correct. Okay, the first bidder is Core and Main LP. There's one original, 2 duplicates, and a flash drive, but it's on a page that says copy, which is cute.
Thanks. I have page B8 for the total.
Yeah.
Okay.
These were the ones that supposed to have the bid, right? The bond, right? They walked past it.
So it might be this one.
I don't have a bond listed for this one.
One listed for the one.
I don't think it would make sense for this one to have a bond.
This one does have a.
It does?
Let me.
Because it's supply. Yeah, this is supply. No bond,
That's good. Thank you.
not required.
Okay. The total bid for this one is $52,460.42.
So that number was 52,460.42. That was for Core and Main LP for $52,460.42.
The second bidder is Ferguson Waterworks. I have one original, I have 2 duplicates, and I have 1 flash drive. And the total bid price is $1,726,144.69.
Okay, that number was 1,726,144.69. Ferguson Waterworks, $1,726,144.69. Okay,
Yeah, there's a big difference.
yeah. But we're confirmed, it's RFQ 655. It's definitely the same bid.
RFQ 655.
Okay, just want to be sure.
Can you bring me that one? Triple check.
Yeah, when there's a big spread, it always just makes me want to be absolutely sure. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, excellent.
Okay, well, we will,
I see the issue.
okay. So it's,
We are reading the correct thing in.
okay. So we'll refer that to procurement anyway for a verification that things are totaled up correctly. Reread the totals as presented. That was our second of 2 bidders for RFQ 000655, supply and delivery of copper tubing. Up next, we have RFQ 692, design and construction for conduit and fiber optic cable at Cherry Hill Homes and Brooklyn Homes. I think we have 2 bidders for this.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
First up, we have a bid from Highlander Construction Company, Highlander Contracting Company, LLC. I have 1 original, I have 1 duplicate, and I have a flash drive. The total bid price is $3,659,050.
Dollars?
Yeah, we can read it again. 3,659, 050.
.00. May I have a copy?
Yes, you might need your extra.
And do we have a bond?
Oh, yes, it's the front page. Thank you, Sean.
3659050.00. That is super tiny. And we have a bond.
Thank you.
I'm going to read that again. That bidder was Highlander Contracting Company LP for $3,659,050.00. Casey,
All right. Thank you. Sorry.
that's okay. I recorded the number twice anyway. so
Great.
we're good. Don't be aggressive with your mic.
Okay, the second bidder is Paniagua Enterprises, Inc. We have 1 original, and 1 duplicate, and 1 flash drive.
Do we also see a bond?
We see a bid bond,
Very good.
and then where's the math?
It was here.
Oh,
It's
sorry.
weird.
It's
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. I need it. It's kind of small.
Are you using a magnifying glass?
No, but I'm very close to that. This bid, the total bid amount is $3,523,210.00.
Okay, that was 3,523,210.00.
That's correct.
May I see a copy? And your magnifying glass?
And the
That was
Total is on
Hanyagwa
301.
Enterprises, Inc. for $3,523,210.00. And that was our final of two bidders for RFQ 692, Design and Construction for conduit and fiber optic cable at Cherry Hill Homes and Brooklyn Homes. Up next for Recreation and Parks, we have RP 24814 for the North Hartford Park Playground and Field.
We have one bidder for this, WM Schlosser Company Incorporated.
May I have the copy?
You can have the copy. This is the one that we discussed before.
Yes, so this is the copy? Or is this the original?
When you open that one up,
It has lots of tabs. Oh, 'tis blank.
no, this one's duplicate, sorry.
This is the original, right?
Okay, so from the original,
Okay. There's no bond for this?
there should be a bid bond. I don't think we flagged that.
Actually, it's right on here.
Yeah.
It could be the backwards and the right.
I don't see it marked on this copy either, but I am looking.
Okay, should be before that, but in case someone should have the.
I don't have a bond in the copy. Was this actually two copies that you handed to me? Is this potentially?
They have, I think there's a lot of addendas on top.
Oh, okay. It almost looks like this is an original and a copy attached. We might let Law figure this out once we get the total out. I see a total in two places, and they're the same.
Yeah,
Do you
I
have
can't
any-
see a bid bond on this, and there is nothing under total.
Okay, so you have no total. I have two totals. That could
Okay.
explain why you don't have a total.
Yeah, can I get one of them?
I will share my total with you. The total I have in two places, one of which may actually be the original, but it got attached to the copy, is $6,677,000.00. And it reads exactly the same on what looks like it might be the original with the addenda attached and the copy marked duplicate.
I think we should refer these to Law.
These shall be referred to Law. So we have, I think I have a duplicate and an original. And do we have a flash drive?
No flash drive required for capital.
Okay, and there is no bond, and we're not sure that one was required for this. Okay, so that bidder, and the only bidder for our RP 24814 was WM Schlosser Company, Inc. The bid amount I have is $6,677,000.00. And because there's some paging issues, we are going to refer this bid first to the Law Department for their review. And we will note that on the bid sheet that will be posted later
To
today.
clarify, there was a requirement for a bid bond,
Oh, and you didn't see what
and I
either?
couldn't find one.
Okay.
Okay.
Just one second. Okay, I'm going to make some notes on that one before we let anyone pick it up.
Okay.
Okay, up next is for Department of Transportation, TR 25005. This is for curb repairs citywide. And I believe we have 4 bidders for this.
Yes, the first one is E&R Services Incorporated. There's one original and one duplicate.
Flash drive?
No flash drives for these ones. Sorry if I didn't mark that. And the total amount is $372,010.00.
That number was 372, comma, 010.00.
Correct.
Do we have a bond?
And we have a bond. Here's, do you want to look at the duplicate?
And that bid amount confirming for E&R Services, Inc. I'm sorry, what page was that? This one's
That
not
page
marked.
was 101.
Okay, got it. That bid amount for E&R Services, Inc. was $372,010.00.
Very distracted. Okay, the next one is from J Villa Construction Incorporated. I have one original and one duplicate. I have a bid bond in front of me. And the total amount is $441,200.
That number was 441, comma, 200.00.
Correct. Sorry. I want to note that I read from, it looks like I have 2 originals.
Oh, we have 2 originals.
As in?
Is that possible?
Well, I mean,
And
in a
nothing's marked.
philosophical sense, I don't know.
Nothing's marked dupe, right?
Nothing's marked duplicate
Okay.
is what I want to share.
Okay. Can I see one of the originals?
Excuse me, can you guys, I can't hear.
Thank you.
Can I, yeah, thanks. Let me see the thing that looks like a copy. Okay. This is J Villa Construction, Inc., and the total that appears in what actually looks like it should be marked copy is $441,200.00, which matches the thing that looks like it is the original. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks. Okay, the next one is from Peniagua Enterprises. I have one original, I have one marked duplicate. And the total amount is $386,235.
Okay, can you tell me, can you repeat the number again? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's a 6.
It's a 6, okay. 386, right?
Yeah, 386,235.
Okay, 386, comma, 235.00. And do we have bond?
Yes, we do.
Thanks. And that bid amount was $386,235.00 for Paniagua Enterprises, Inc.
Okay, the last one is from Santos Construction Company Incorporated. I have one marked duplicate, one marked original. I have a bid bond. And the total amount is $460,070.00.
That was 460,070.00.
Correct?
Okay, that bidder was the final of four, and that was Santos Construction Company, Inc. for $460,070.00. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
And that was the final of four bidders for TR 25005 curb repair citywide. And that was our last bid, yes?
Correct.
And that was our last opening for today. Our next bid opening is scheduled for May 7th, 2025.
Thank you.
And I'm going to mark this 2025 instead of 2024. I know. Can we look at the one? Oh, no. Oh, sorry, Charm TV. I meant to release you guys. Thanks, everybody. And we will see you on May 7th.